Anyone who is making decisions for themselves that the parents don't give their blessing, that's seen as rebellious. The way that my parents kind of protected my brother, but then used me and some of my sisters, it was hard, and it's still hard to swallow.
Hey everyone, it's Katie Joy. I want to speak from the heart and explain something that's been on my mind for a while. About 2 years ago, I started speaking out about the people behind the show, Shiny, Happy People. Duggar Family Secrets. I noticed things that didn't sit right with me, especially how the producers were handling those they chose to feature in the series. They worked closely with me for quite some time, asking for information, leads, and connections. I gave them names, I gave them context, and I warned them about certain individuals who had deeply concerning backgrounds. But they didn't take it seriously. They moved forward anyway and gave platforms to people who, in my opinion, should have never been given that kind of visibility. Months before the show was even released in June 2023, I had already shared critical information with the production team. One of the individuals they planned to feature had a protective order filed against him by his own son and wife. They had accused him of abuse, both physically and emotionally. I passed on those details. I even gave them first-hand accounts from family members who were affected. I made it clear that if they included this person, the credibility of their whole series could be compromised. Still, they didn't seem to care. After the series aired, I publicly shared my concerns. I talked about how I had warned the director, Olivia, about Jim Holt. His children had made disturbing claims about him. One of his daughters confided in me, saying she ended up marrying someone with the same disturbing traits as Josh Duggar. And even after all this, the show allowed Jim and his wife Bobby to be portrayed as heroes. They were crying on camera, claiming they had protected their daughter from Josh, but from what I was told, they had simply handed her off to someone just like him. I told production this was misleading and dishonest, but again, they ignored it. When I went public with this information, things got worse. Jim and Bobby Holt reportedly told the production team that I was not trustworthy, calling me names like liar and manipulative. They even went so far as to convince others, including Amy Duggar King, to cut off all contact with me. The production team then publicly claimed they didn't work with me because they needed to be mindful of the people who were appearing on the show. They made it seem like it was about balancing interests, but that didn't add up. What really hurts is that before all the smear campaigns, I was actually the one who told Derek Dillard about the series in the first place. I gave production his contact details and even tried to help get other people involved, including Olivia Play. But in the end, they dismissed my help and discredited me instead. It's been painful to be silenced and painted in such a negative light after trying to do the right thing. I just wanted the truth to be told. I gave the production team a lot of information and helped them with a large amount of content for their series. But not long after Jim Holt began turning people against me, they suddenly said they were working with too many contributors and couldn't include any more commentators. They claimed it wasn't personal, just a matter of space. Then, when the show was finally released, they changed the story and said some people on the cast didn't want to appear on camera with me. That wasn't true. The only ones who had a problem with me were Jim and Bobby Holt. They didn't want me involved because I knew things they didn't want made public. And they managed to convince others to side with them. This time, the new season has a different director. WithoutACrystalBall is no longer involved. Instead, Corey Shepard is leading it. Corey had previously taken part in a Q&A on the Duggar Snark board, where she responded to questions about me, according to what I was told by several people. She made negative remarks about me there. I also heard that people connected to the show were being told to avoid speaking to me altogether. It wasn't until after the new season aired, and after serious legal actions were taken against Jim Holt, such as the protective order and the loss of custody of his children, that my relationship with Amy Duggar King was repaired. Amy had been pushed away from me for so long because of Jim's influence. I had convinced everyone that I wasn't honest. The first time I reached out to the production team to warn them about Jim was back in February 2022. Before they even started filming, I explained the serious claims against him and even shared screenshots of what his daughter told me about physical abuse and about her husband, who she described as being just like Josh Duggar when he was young. Her father had claimed he would help fix the boy, eventually. It became public through court documents that Jim Holt's daughter, one of his youngest children, accused him of sexual abuse. She ended up leaving his house and staying with her brother until she was old enough to live on her own. I spoke up about it because I truly cared about the victims of the religious group the series was about. I felt it was unfair for someone like Jim, who had caused harm, to be portrayed as if he was helping or innocent. He appeared in the series as someone who had protected his daughter. Even though he had actually done the opposite, my concern was always for the people who had suffered and were brave enough to tell their stories. But after the series aired, some of those same survivors started calling me names on social media. They accused me of lying and refused to believe anything I said, even though I had always tried to protect them. It's hard for me to believe things will be any different with the second season of Shiny Happy People. From what I've seen, so far it already feels like the show is being promoted in a way that isn't completely honest. I want to be clear, I have no issue with Amy Duggar King. I like her. I respect her, and I've even talked to her recently through texts. Her husband Dylan follows me and watches my content. She's also releasing a book soon, and I think she's doing her best. But at the same time, I feel like she's being used because of her last name. The producers know that the Duggar name draws attention, and they're likely counting on her presence to keep people watching, even though this next season won't really focus on the Duggars. The first season had massive success, mostly because it was all about the Duggar family. They had been on TV for nearly 2 decades, preaching conservative values. Their image fell apart when their son was convicted of a serious crime involving harmful materials. He went to prison, and the family's reality show was canceled. That scandal alone grabbed public attention. In the first season, only one Duggar family member, Jill, and her husband participated. Later, her sister Jinger spoke out and criticized how the show portrayed Christians. She felt it wasn't respectful to faith and thought it missed the mark in how it handled the message. Personally, believe the final episode of season 1 shifted focus too much. It became more political than necessary, instead of sticking with the core topic, the abuse and control inside the religious group. It turned into a warning about Christian nationalism taking over the government. While I understand the concern, behind that topic, it felt like it pushed aside the stories of survivors who had already shared painful experiences. The Joshua generation, which the show talked about near the end, wasn't even officially part of the IBLP, which made the ending feel disconnected now, as season 2 is being introduced. The trailer opens with Amy, making it seem like the Duggar story continues. But really, this new season centers on a group called Teen Mania, which was another religious organization aimed at teenagers, known for loud music and emotional events. I worry that Amy and her husband are being used to draw attention, even though the story has shifted. If what happened during the first season is any indication, the second season might again focus on dramatic moments rather than truly honoring survivors. Stories some people from the first season felt misled after it aired. For example, Paul and Morgan, a Christian YouTube couple, were told one thing about their role, but ended up being shown in a way that made them look foolish. Their interviews were cut into short clips used to mock their beliefs. Even if you don't agree with them, it's wrong to bring someone in under false promises. I had a similar experience. I was told I'd play an important on-camera role and signed exclusive paperwork, but they didn't follow through. This pattern worries me. And I hope survivors in the next season are treated with honesty and care. I shared a lot of important information with the people making the show. I gave them documents, sources, and even created detailed spreadsheets about the Duggars' companies and financial dealings. I spent a lot of time helping them, only to later hear that they were telling others I was unstable and jealous. Hurt, especially after everything I contributed. Because of that, I've decided not to watch the second season of Shiny Happy People. It's not about the topic or the story itself, it's about the people behind the project. I just don't trust their intentions anymore. After my time working with the team behind Shiny Happy People, I was involved in another documentary. The second team I worked with was completely different. They truly cared about the survivors. They spoke with every person who had gone through trauma, was treated with kindness and support. They were offered help, resources, and were never placed on screen with people who had caused them harm. The stories were shared with great respect, and everyone involved felt heard and valued. Unlike the first experience, I wasn't misled or used. Ray gave me credit for my reporting, paid me fairly, and followed through on what they promised. That experience reminded me how production teams should treat the people helping to tell these stories. So, if anyone out there is thinking about working with the team behind Shiny Happy People, or any future projects like it, I just want to warn you, be careful. I truly believe they take advantage of people who've been part of harmful groups. If you've seen the show or have thoughts about this, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss my updates. Thanks for watching.